October of 2010, I flew to Portland, Oregon to drive home to the Philadelphia area. I did that because my friend Madison was living in Portland and she wanted to move home. She needed to drive her car and all of her stuff, but she didn't want to do it by herself, understandably. So I flew to Portland, Oregon to drive home, except I only had 3 days off of work. It was a long weekend. So I said, we can do this, but if we do it, we have to drive. We can't, do touristy things and visit, fancy restaurants and Mount Rushmore. We have to drive. So she said, that's great. I want to do it now. That's perfect. Do it. So I flew to Portland, Oregon. And this story is about our first day of driving. We get up early. We have breakfast in Portland, kind of her one shot at showing me the city that I've never been to in an hour. And we fill up the car with gas. We start driving. We drive through Oregon, which is lush and green, and there's waterfalls on the side of the highway, and it's beautiful. Eventually, maybe 7 hours later, we get to Boise, Idaho. So we stop to have dinner, eat potatoes, because it seemed like the right thing to do. And we do that, we get back in the car, and we drive about 3 more hours. It's nighttime, it's 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And we're driving on this highway in Idaho. The landscape is kind of rocky and desolate. And she says, oh, we only have 30 miles to empty. So we're like, okay, we need to get gas. We'll get gas. And then almost immediately, we pass one of those green highway signs that says, next exit, Malta, Idaho, 23. And in that moment, we take stock of our situation. That's when we notice the rocky, desolate landscape. That's when we realize on this highway there has been no rest stops. It's not the kind of highway we're used to here in the East Coast. We have 7 miles, and we start to go through our options. A is Madison's choice. She wants to stay on the highway. And the reason she wants to stay on the highway is because in this interim, I have done as any dutiful passenger in 2010 would have done, and I have gotten on my iPhone and realized that we have no service. We have no GPS. We have no phone, nothing. We're off the grid. We don't know where we are. We know the next exit's 23 miles away. We travel the world's longest 23 miles, and we decide instead to go with my option, I think because I was more level-headed in the terror of the moment, and so I kind of just talked her into doing what I wanted to do. I wanted to get off the exit, because if we stayed on the highway, we would definitely run out of gas. Her point was that if we run out of gas on this highway, someday someone will be able to find us. My argument was that if we get off the highway, we have 7 miles. Granted, 7 miles might not be enough, but we have a chance. And if we stay on the highway, we have no chance. So we get to the next exit, 23 miles later. We pull off. The good news is now we have 8 miles. We got a magical extra mile in our miles. It's perfect. Maybe not perfect, but better. And the bad news is the quaint little Idaho town we were envisioning to be off that exit is absolutely non-existent. The landscape is still rocky and desolate, and there is one single solitary light in the distance. And I say, we have to do it. We have to try. There might be gas. Who knows? So we start driving. We watch the miles tick down. 7 miles. 6 miles. Madison stops in the middle of the road, and I say, what are you doing? And I look over her. She's shaking. And I say, do you want me to drive? We have to drive. We can't sit here because we're going to run out of gas faster, and because we're in the middle of the road. And she says, no. She pulls herself together, and we keep driving. At 5 miles left, there's a sign that says Malta, Idaho, population 181, which now seems very small. That's a very small number. But at the time, we were like, yes, there is at least 181 people here that we could come into contact with maybe just one of them. That would be perfect. So we keep driving. And as we're driving these 5, 4, 3 miles. I'm thinking, I know what that light is. It's a farm. And I don't tell Madison. I'm thinking, farms have gas sometimes. And I'm thinking, farmers have shotguns sometimes. And we just keep driving. And we get to the light, and it's a farm. And we're not desperate enough to actually go approach the farm yet. So we still have 2 whole miles. So we keep driving, and we actually get to this intersection, completely dark, bakery on one side, barbecue restaurant on the other side. And we think, like, oh, this is like the nail in our coffin. We found civilization, and no one's here. So what are we gonna do now? And then we realize that actually there's 1 car in the barbecue restaurant parking lot and 1 light on, like kind of deep inside the restaurant. So I say, pull in, I'll get out. So she pulls in, should I turn the car off? Should I leave it on? Should I leave it running? I'm like, I don't know, just leave it running. It doesn't matter anymore. We have 0 miles at this point. So I knock on the door, there's a light shining inside the restaurant, and nobody comes. I knock again. Someone has to be here. There's a car in the parking lot. And I see someone kind of poke their head into the light. And she walks toward me. She's a 40-ish-year-old blonde woman with black t-shirt and khaki pants. She smile on her face, and she opens the door inquisitively. And I say, I'm really sorry, but we're about to run out of gas. And I was just hoping you could tell me where the nearest gas station is. And I was probably, there was probably a quaking in my voice and in my body. And she said, oh yeah, it's right there. It's like 500 yards that way. It's right beyond that bakery. And I know that there was a light shining from behind her. And this point I'm willing to say is arguable. But in that moment I heard music as well. And it's possible that there was a radio, right, like in the back of the restaurant that I heard. But the reason I think it's probably questionable is because the music was like, and then I snapped out of it, and I was like, okay, thank you so much, we have to go. So we get back in the car, we drive to the absolutely dark gas station, and we just think, there's no way. We realize that the pump is still on, and so you can pay with a credit card and get gas. We get gas, and we're both just so relieved, but absolutely exhausted, and we drive about 4 more hours. And at this point, road trip delusion has absolutely set in. We check into this hotel, we check to see if there's bed bugs, because it was the height of bed bug pandemonium. And Madison goes in the bathroom to get ready for bed, and I flip open that binder that's in some hotel rooms. It tells you when continental breakfast is and whatever. So I flip through it. I'm trying to find out when continental breakfast is, and on the first page, it says we're in Rock Springs, Wyoming. It says Rock Springs Massacre, 1885. In Rock Springs in 1885, it goes on to tell me the story that the Union Pacific Railroad decided they were going to pay Chinese workers less than white workers, and then therefore gave all the jobs to the Chinese people because they got more work for less money, and so the white workers killed all the Chinese people. People were dead, their houses were burned. It was terrible. It's a terrible story, and I was already stressed out and freaked out from my day, and all I was thinking was, what kind of place are we in where this is the first page of this binder? They were trying to advertise it, they're proud of it, and I'm like, where's Madison when I need her? And she comes out of the bathroom, and I say, Madison, oh my God, look at this, blah, 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 about the massacre. And she says, Sarah, you're not even Chinese. Thank you.
Sarah.